Boy, we worked hard on this show for you this week. We hope you enjoy it. Coming up, 4 great topics. Why do we have a retirement crisis? What does that mean? And maybe what can you be doing to make sure your retirement plan is strong? 2 stages of investing. Early on and near retirement, learn about the details of that. Then we're going to talk about real returns versus average returns. How can they be different and what does that mean for long-term viability? And finally, to wrap up the show, what do I need to do to retire? I want to lay out different aspects, whether you're 20 or 80 years old, the things to consider when you're building that plan to shoot for.
Retiring Well, brought to you by Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial advisors specializing in retirement planning and serving all of Northern Michigan. Retiring Well, helping you plan for a successful and comfortable retirement. Retiring Well. Plan to retire well.
Why do we have a retirement crisis? Well, according to the Insured Retirement Institute, 45% of baby boomers have no savings. So again, baby boomers were born between 1946 to 1964, and of the other 55% of these baby boomers, 28% of them have less than $100,000 in their savings. So they're going to be relying heavily on Social Security. And this may be back in the day, pensions were the most popular type of retirement plan. Pensions are set to pay a lifetime income stream. So in 1974, this was the first year for IRAs. So there was a nominal amount you could contribute back at that time. And then it was 1978 when 401ks were introduced, and companies, got away from the traditional pensions and essentially were putting the responsibility back on the employees to begin saving for themselves. In 1978, the first of the baby boomers were turning 32 years old. So what happened? I think back, would they have been taught to save? Their parents more than likely would have had a pension along with Social Security, and that was what they were going to live on during their retirement. There wasn't maybe as much of a stress on, hey, you need to be saving for your retirement. Could it have been a piece of this where there's a loss in purchasing power? If inflation's high, you have eroding purchasing power, wages may not be able to keep up, and with all of the quantitative easing, has it devalued the dollar? Maybe there's a higher cost of living and wages, again, aren't keeping up, and so you weren't able to be putting money away for your retirement. The boomer generation as well experienced a couple of major setbacks in the stock market, as I'm sure all of you remember the tech bubble from 2000 through 2002, where essentially dropped to half of its value. And then we had the credit crash in 2008, where they saw the market drop in half again. So psychologically, that was difficult for investors experiencing that extreme level of volatility. So again, it's one where if you're not really sure what your retirement plan looks like or how you've mapped this out for the long term and to generate an income stream over, say, the next 20, 30 years, it's vital to be laying out a plan and making sure that you keep up with that plan. And if you haven't started saving yet, we strongly encourage you to start looking at that. And if you do have a retirement savings that you need some assistance and a second opinion, we'd love the opportunity to sit down with you and discuss further.
Hey, welcome back. Hopefully you found that information about why we might have a retirement crisis in this country helpful. I just recently had a case in the Cadillac office where a prospective client came in and they sat down and they were 62 years old, single, and he said, I just can't keep working. The stress of my job right now is going to kill me. And so they said, here's where I'm at. And he was pretty dejected, I think, when we first met. And I said, okay, that's all right. Part of what we do is plan to retire well. We're just going to speed up that planning process for you right now. And so we took all the different data that he had. We took his different retirement accounts. We took the Social Security options. We looked at his healthcare plan. We looked at his tax plan. And we also looked at his skill set. what did he just work for the last 30 to 40 years doing? How could that be used in another area to create some cash flow? And by the end of the meeting, we had planned out all these different areas. We had talked about how making sure all his assets could be in good order so that they could pass on to his beneficiaries. You know, we took that holistic approach, and he walked out of our office feeling much better. And I know it's because we started planning. So, you know, if you find yourself feeling dejected about the situation you might, be in for your retirement, the best way to counter that is to educate and to plan. So, Nick, I know you had another situation.
Very similar situation up in the Petoskey office as well. This client, he was sick of working, but really for him, he was just so fearful of sitting down with somebody, not understanding the whole financial industry at all, and he really wanted that education. Thankfully, he found us on the TV show, and that's how he kind of got enough courage to come and meet with us. But that's something we're here at Centennial Wealth. We are a no-pressure firm. We are going to educate and then dive into any kind of areas that you want to talk about, okay? We're not going to push any kind of products on you whatsoever. It's just a great opportunity in that first meeting to just learn, to ask tons of questions, because we don't want anybody to ever feel like they can't come in here and get the knowledge that they need to retire well. So hopefully you found that information valuable. Please stay tuned. We're going to be talking about the 2 stages of investing and then real return versus average return coming up next.
One consistent thing in our working years, taxes. In retirement, guess what? They follow you. Taxes are going to be there in retirement. It's important to have a holistic approach that tackles this and has a plan for this. In your early years, you're in the growth and accumulation phase. You're deferring taxes in most cases, and guess what? In retirement, you turn into a distribution phase, turning that into a paycheck, and now we have to worry about taxes. Our holistic retirement planning approach includes tax planning and implementing tax reduction strategies to minimize your liability and increase your cash flow. We are well versed with ever-changing tax laws and sources of tax-free retirement. Where you put your money matters, and the earlier you take these steps to change, the better. Here at Centennial Wealth, it's important to us to not only consider your investment plan, but have a holistic approach across the board with all of your assets. Take advantage of this opportunity now while you still can. We here in our Northern Michigan offices want to sit down with you with a complimentary, no obligations visit to review your whole plan and take a deep dive into that tax plan so you can be assured that you have a solid foundation not only for today, but for the next 20 to 30 years of your retirement. As an investor, we believe you go through 2 primary stages of investing. There's the early stage when you're a beginning investor until you get, further into your years, but not yet to those retirement years. Growth and accumulation, we call this. You're putting money away. You're having money taken out of your paycheck, trying to accumulate as much assets as you can. And typically speaking, at that time, you have a longer time horizon, meaning that you're many years away from retirement. So oftentimes, people assume more risk during those years. You don't have to, but in many times people choose to do that. Think of it this way. As you're going along, obviously everybody wants the biggest returns they can have, but you're willing to accept maybe some bigger risk to have those returns because you don't need the money right away. When you look at your 401k statement every month or every quarter when you get that, it stings a little bit when you see when it drops or if the markets aren't performing the way you want them to, but you typically don't need that money at that time, so it's not a big impact on your life. But let's fast forward now a few years, and you're getting near those retirement years, you're in those retirement years. Now you want to be in the preservation of wealth and income stays. Guess what? You've put in money for 30 or 40 years maybe. Now it's time for that portfolio, that savings, to generate a paycheck to you. But you want that to last, right? The preservation standpoint. Likely you're going to need that income for some period of time. It's different for all of us, right? Tomorrow's never promised, so we don't know how long that may be. But for some folks, they may be retired for 40 plus years. So we need to preserve this, but make it generate a paycheck. These are two fundamentally different ways to invest. And there's two fundamentally different goals they each have. Growth and accumulation, build the biggest pot of money possible, right? Preservation of wealth and income, hey, we want this money to last, but we also want it to pay us a paycheck for as long as possible. So when you're looking at doing this, there's two vastly different skill sets typically associated with these from a financial professional standpoint. Growth and accumulation, you're typically bringing on risk, as I've talked about. You're not as concerned with taxation because you're not drawing it out yet. Typically, you're deferring, right? Now, let's look at preservation of wealth and income. Taxation is all of a sudden now a big piece, right? Because we're pulling money out. What if that's taxable at that time? How is it affecting other means and resources? So folks, as you're thinking about this, whether you're 20 or 30 years old and you're just getting started, or you're entering those retirement years or thinking about that, consider those different concepts and how that may be appropriate to you and how it affects you. It should be referenced in your overall financial plan or retirement plan so you understand when or where that transition takes place and the other pieces associated with that so you can make sure things are going to be doing well for you over time. If you'd like to talk more about this and talk about how that preservation of income may be set up appropriately for you, give us a call. We'd love to talk through that.
In today's day and age, with a longer lifespan, you're more likely to encounter both good and bad market performance. For that reason, when planning for retirement, it's increasingly important to seek guidance from a financial advisor who can help you structure an income strategy that reflects your financial situation, risk tolerance, and investment objectives. You don't want just any advice, but objective financial advice. With so much at stake, it's important that you feel you can trust a financial advisor to consider a wide variety of possible solutions, including both investment and insurance products. Here at Centennial Wealth Advisory, we're not beholden to any certain investment tools or vehicles. We're independent. We can offer a wide variety of investment tools that meet your needs. So please, if you have any questions or you want to schedule an initial consultation, don't hesitate to give us a call at the number on the screen. We're happy to help in any way that we can.
Let's talk about real return versus average return and how big of a difference they could be. So we'll use an example to illustrate this. So let's pretend at first that you have an investment that lost 50% the first year, then it made 50% the next year, lost 50% the third year, and then grew 50% in the fourth year. So definitely a volatile investment, but it helps illustrate the following. So if you total those figures, you're going to see that the average return equals 0%. But let's use some real figures now and assume you started with $100,000. So after losing 50%, you're down to $50,000. And then you make 50% in year two, so you've grown to $75,000. and then it drops 50%, so now you're down to $37,500, and then in the 4th year you went up 50% to equal $56,250. Now again, the average return was 0%, however, the real return here was negative 43.75%. That's quite the difference. So now what is the return that investments typically report? It's always focused on the average return. I recognize that I'm using an exaggerated example here because you hopefully aren't normally experiencing 50% up, 50% down types of swings year in and year out, but it's especially important if you have, say, a higher risk investment with greater potential for volatility, then the average return may not be the best indicator to use when you're looking at your portfolio. It may be more focused on what is the real rate of return that you're experiencing. So what's interesting here at Centennial Wealth Advisory is that we have the tools to be able to dive behind what your investments are and look back and see, how would they have performed, say, during the 2008 credit crash, and determine for you, is that the level of volatility and the level of risk that you're comfortable with for your retirement savings. Think of it this way. If you're using that money upon retirement to generate an income stream, what may have been a reasonable withdrawal rate of, say, 5%, if your money drops in half, now all of a sudden, okay, now you're drawing out at a 10% withdrawal rate, which would make me feel pretty uncomfortable. I'm sure it would for you as well. So that's where volatility and reducing that risk exposure when it comes time to generating an income stream may be something you want to be considering. So if that's valuable to you and you'd like to have a second opinion about your overall portfolio, we encourage you to give us a call.
Lots of great information there again in that segment on the 2 stages of investing. When I think of that, I'm in a different stage of investing than most of our clients are, right? Because I'm young, I have time on my side, so I'm in that growth and accumulation phase. And what happens a lot in the Gaylord office is I have clients come in and they've been in that growth and accumulation stage for pretty much their entire life. It's hard for them to realize and to get into that new mindset where in retirement they go from the growth and accumulation phase to the preservation and income phase. Because remember, retirement is essentially like 30 to 40 years of unemployment. You need this money to generate a paycheck for you in retirement. So you need to preserve it and generate that income stream. Whereas me, I got time on my side, I just need to grow it and accumulate it as much as possible until I retire. So it's always interesting to show our clients the numbers to kind of help show them, hey, how much return do I actually need in retirement to meet my obligations? Because that typically helps them understand that they don't need to go chasing those 10 to 15% rate of returns. All they need is that simple 4 to 6% rate of return, and they can live comfortably in retirement. But it's just so important to kind of get that mindset switch going from the growth and accumulation to the preservation and income stage.
Yeah, and segueing into average returns, real returns, there's an interesting numbers game that you could work out where the sequence of returns in your accumulation years don't matter. In fact, you can have a gain, loss, gain, and then have a loss, gain, gain, gain. And at the end of the day, if you haven't taken any distributions from those numbers, the numbers work out the same. But as soon as you get into retirement, that's where things fundamentally change. As soon as you're going to start distributing those funds, the sequence of return risk matter. Another thing that we run across all the time are people that clients will come in and they'll say, or potential clients rather, they'll say, oh yeah, I just had this great year in the market, just made 27% or something, and okay, that's great. Now let's talk about what happens when that portfolio doesn't perform. What are the down years? And I lost 27% that year. And if you're looking at 2 portfolios and they have the same average return, the one with the smaller variance always has more money in it. And so that's something that we get to dig into. Hey, if we have a similar portfolio with the same average return and our variance is smaller, statistically you're going to have a better chance of having more money in it. And wouldn't you like to know that? So when it comes to average returns and how you're situated in your portfolio, it's really important to first figure out what stage of investing that you're in, and then also what your plan is to do about that. So again, if you have any questions about how you're situated, what some of those numbers for your portfolio might look like, feel free to give us a call anytime. Hey, and coming up, we get to figure out, what do you need to retire? Stay tuned.
Living life isn't always easy. It puts up challenges and obstacles you'll have to overcome. There are responsibilities. You put in effort to provide and take care of your family, and to save and invest, to balance work and life. Planning is the first step to succeeding. Plan to retire well.
You can have a portfolio, or you can have a plan. You can play it safely, or you can safely plan. You can guess when to take Social Security, or you can make your decision based on detailed analysis. You can hope your savings will last your entire retirement, or you can take action and know. You can let life happen to you, or you can take control. You can go it alone, or you can have an experienced guide ready to walk with you every step of the way. We are Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial planners serving all of Northern Michigan, offices in Gaylord, Petoskey, Traverse City, and Cadillac. Simply call the number on your screen for a complimentary initial consultation and let us help you plan to retire well.
All right, everybody out there, I want to talk about, what do I need to do to retire? And this is appropriate whether you're sitting there watching showing you're 20 years old or whether you're 80 years old. This here, I want you to listen, because there are many different things in here that we see people miss over time. So first, I want to start off with this quote that I think is very prudent with this, and it's quite meaningful to me too as well. So this is from Bill Copeland. He says, "The trouble with not having a goal is that you can spend your life running up and down the field and never score." Isn't that true? Retirement at the end is this magnificent goal that some people don't really know what it is, and it's that touchdown at the end. But how do we get there? What is that goal going to be? So when you're thinking about retirement, the many things you need to do, saving money is a piece of that, but all these other things have to play a role of that. So let's walk through a little bit of that. First, in retirement, what do we want to do? Envision yourself in retirement. What does that look like? What is your lifestyle going to be? Is that travel? Is it maybe wintering away if you're here in Northern Michigan and you want to stay in Florida or Arizona? Is that spending time with your grandkids, hobbies, volunteering, part-time work, whatever that may be? Envision yourself in that spot. What is your budget going to need to be in that lifestyle? What do you think you're going to need? Okay, great. We got that established. Now let's continue on. We got a budget. Healthcare, where's that coming from? Oftentimes when you're working, maybe your employer's picking up a portion or all of that. If you're going to retire, where are you going to go with this? What are the costs going to be associated with? Typically, there's two primary paths. Pre-65, you're in the marketplace or some form of that. After, Medicare, right? So that's a big piece of it. So now we have our budget, we have our health care. Now, when we're talking about that, also, what is our debt? What is going on out there? Entering retirement with debt can be challenging. Let's say I have 20 years left on my mortgage, but I only want to work 15. Start making arrangements. Ideally, get that paid off in advance if you can. I'm not saying going into retirement with debt can't be done, but it tends to be a little more efficient without it. Understanding that the balance on your 401k statement is not a plan. Not all of that money is even yours in many cases, right? If you have a traditional 401k, pre-tax 401k, guess what? You have a silent partner in that. Uncle Sam is going to want a piece of that at some point when you're taking that out, right? So what taxation are you going to have, or what tax plan are you going to have on those investments? So that way, not only we have income, we know what our lifestyle wants to be, healthcare, investments, taxation, and then also kind of wrap things up. What happens when we're gone? How do we want to leave things to our family so that they don't have struggles or don't have challenges in probate courts and such like that? So making sure things are wrapped up in a really great manner to leave your loved ones in a good place behind. So folks, you know what? Retirement is a great time, and it's a wonderful thing. So once again, like I said at the beginning, whether you're 20 years old or 80 years old, it's never too late to start planning for this and map that out in detail so you know that goal you're working towards so you can score.
Hey, welcome back. Lots of good information about, hey, what do you need to retire? I just recently had a older good friend of mine come into the office, and he kind of jokingly said, Jack, what do I need to retire? And I quickly responded, a purpose and cash flow contentment. And the more that we got into those two things, we actually thought, wow, that's a pretty simple way to think about it. You know, just because you stopped your work in one area doesn't mean you're going to stop your work in life. You know, what does that purpose look like? And if you have found contentment in your cash flow, if more of income is coming in than the expenses are going out and you're good with that, maybe you should look at retiring. So if you are going to retire, hey, I got a place you can call, Centennial Wealth Advisory. Feel free anytime. We love to lead with education and help you really maybe help find that purpose and help find that time that you can go enter a different phase of your life.
Yeah, I mean, here when we're working and dealing with retirees, it's just so much fun to learn and get to know what your purpose really is. I mean, we've had clients in the past where they come in the office and they know exactly what they want to do in retirement. Maybe it's travel the world or spend 3 months down in Florida during the winter time or whatever it may be. But that's kind of one of the joys of working here at Centennial Wealth is we get to hear your story and get to develop those plans to help make your story a reality, okay? So it's a lot of fun to work with you, and don't ever be afraid to give us a call, and we'd be happy to help work and develop that retirement plan for you. So I know in this show we go over a lot of general different segments, ideas, questions, answers, but retirement is personal. So please don't hesitate to reach out, give us a call on the number on the screen, and we'd be happy to set up a no obligation, free consultation to kind of help you plan to retire well. Also, don't forget, you can find all these episodes that we've ever shot for the last 10 years right on YouTube. You just type in Retiring Well on that search bar, and there's tons of great information out there just in case you missed one of our shows. All right, well, you guys have a great week, and we'll see you right back here, same station, same time, next week.